UHD quality video streaming, internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber. UHD quality video streaming, internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber.
නව ඩොමෙක්ස් වැල්ලම් සහ විසබීජ අවම කර දින 3ක් දක්වා ටොයිලට් එක ෆ්‍රෙෂ්ව තමයි ඩොමෙක්ස්.
Tonight, keeping it the same, the Energy Minister says that he has no intention of copying the LIOC fuel price hike. Food for thought. Food prices in January have shown a more than 4% decline due to some price stabilisations. Good move. Civil society welcomes the appeals court bail ruling for detained lawyer Hijaz Hezbollah. Do your job. The TNA again calls for the resignation of the Fisheries Minister over recent deaths.
The ineffectiveness of Honorable Douglas Devananda that has caused the loss of these two lives. It is only fair that we demand that the Honorable Minister resigns immediately.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Monday, the 7th of February 2022.
Introducing New Hellmann's, the world's #1 mayonnaise brand, now in Sri Lanka.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammikek Naik. Now then, the Bath Curry Index, compiled by the Advocata Institute, shows that there was a 4.21% decline in retail prices of common food items in January compared to December 2021. The index, which serves to depict the cost that must be incurred in purchasing a simple packet of rice, notes that there was an overall year-on-year rise in food items which stood at 15.85%.
Advocata Institute's food price tracker for Sri Lanka has noted that there has been a 4.21% drop in retail prices of food in the month of January 2022 compared to December 2021. The index known as the Badkara indicator is used by the Advocata Institute to track some of the most common food items that go into a typical packet of rice. The index has been created with a local spin comparable to the infamous Big Mac index used in the United States to depict the average rise in some of the simplest and most sought after food items in Sri Lanka. The food items focused on in the index are samba rice, beans, pumpkin, tomatoes, green chili, coconut, red onion, fish, brinjals and dal. The retail prices of the goods used by the index to formulate the index were sourced from the weekly economic indicators published by the Statistics Department of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. The dip in the index has been mainly attributed to the decline in the price of tomatoes, brinjals and green chilies, which had seen a reduction of 52%, 21% and 17% respectively. However, according to the index, there has been a 15.85% year-on-year rise in food items for January 2022 compared to January 2021. The change in the index over the past 3 months starting from November 2021 until January 2022 had risen by 9.97%. The rise in the prices of brinjals and coconuts from November to December 2021 had contributed to the rise in the index, while all other goods saw a marginal rise or decline in their prices. However, Advocata Institute says that the index does not serve as a measure of inflation, but rather shows how some policies have had a direct or indirect impact over the change of the cost of goods over a short period of time. Sri Lanka's inflationary pressures are quantified by the Consumer Price Index and the National Consumer Price Index, which consider a wide array of goods ranging from food to education. According to the National Consumer Price Index, even though overall prices of goods rose by 3.7% between January 2020 and January 2021, food prices rose by 5.9%. As such, the Badkara Index tracks the fluctuation of prices that affects the basic question of how much the average Sri Lankan would need to spend to afford a decent packet of rice.
Minister of Energy Uday Gammanpila says that the ministry has not made a decision to follow in the footsteps of the Lanka Indian Oil Company and hike fuel prices, even though the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has made a request. He added that despite CPC incurring a loss of 35 rupees per litre of diesel and 5 rupees from a litre of petrol, this burden cannot be placed on the public right now.
The revised Lanka Indian Oil Company fuel prices came into effect from midnight yesterday. Accordingly, Consumers will now pay 184 rupees for a litre of 92-octane petrol that was increased by 7 rupees. Further, 95-octane petrol is now being sold at 213 rupees after it was increased by 3 rupees. In addition, a litre of auto diesel is now 124 rupees, while super diesel is 162 rupees. Both were raised by 3 rupees. According to LIOC, the decision to hike prices was due to an increase in global crude prices. At the moment, a barrel of both Brent and West Texas Intermediate crude ranges between $91 and $93. However, despite global prices, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation is yet to announce any price hike. Energy Minister Udaya Gammanpila confirmed today that CPC fuel prices will remain as is.
වැඩි කිරීමේ අදහසක් නැහැ. හැබැයි අපි පිළිගන්න ඕනේ ලෝක වෙළඳ පොලේ දිගින් දිගටම ඉන්ධන මිල වැඩිවීමත් සමග වසර 8කට ඉතිහාසයේ තිබුණු වැඩිම ඉන්ධන මිල දැන් තියෙන්නේ. අනිත් පැත්තෙන් මීට කලින් මේ මිලට බොරතෙල් මිල ඉහළ ගිය අවස්ථාවල ඩොලරේ තිබීට වඩා ගොඩක් අඩුයි. ඩොලර් රුපියල් 100ක වගේ තිබ්බේ. ඒ නිසා මේ ඩොලරය වැඩිවීමයි ලෝක වෙළඳ පොලේ තෙල් වැඩිවීමයි දෙකම නිසා අපි අතිශයම දුෂ්කර තැනක ඉන්න පුළුවන් තරම් දුරට මේ පාඩුව ජනතාවට ලබා නොදෙන්න උත්සාහ කරන ලංකා කන්‍ය තෙල් නීතිගත සංස්ථාව තමන්ට පෙට්‍රල් ලීටරයකින් රුපියල් 5ක් ඒ වගේම ඩීසල් ලීටරයකින් රුපියල් 35ක් ලාභ විඳින බව අපිට ලිඛිතව දැනුම් දීලා තිබෙනවා. මොකද උන්ට මිල වැඩි කිරීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් මෙතෙක් අපි අනුමැතියක් ලබා දීලා නැහැ.
Attorney at law Hijaz Hezbollah, who was arrested under the provisions of the Prevention of Terrorism Act, was granted bail after almost 18 months by the Court of Appeal today. In its ruling, the Court of Appeal says that some parts of the Prevention of Terrorism Act create a vicious cycle of abuse that has been utilised at times to the detriment of personal liberty by its draconian implementation.
A bail petition filed seeking the release of attorney at law Hijaz Hezbollah, who has been detained under provisions of the Prevention of Terrorism Act for over 18 months, was taken up for consideration at the appeals court this morning. The bail application was filed after Puttalam High Court Judge Kumari Aberatna rejected his previous bail application on the 20th of last month, citing a lack of jurisdiction. Hezbollah's lawyers were instructed to request bail from the Court of Appeals. When the case was taken up today, President's counsel Romesh De Silva, who appeared for Hezbollah, argued that by virtue of Articles 138 and 145 of the Constitution and its inherent powers, the Court of Appeal is empowered to release the petition on bail. Delivering its judgment, the appeals court cited certain sections of the Prevention of Terrorism Act, namely subsection 2 of section 15, must be construed in a way that does not abrogate the powers of the Court of Appeal. The section deals with the powers of the Secretary to the Ministry of Defence to determine the extension of a subject's detention based on what can be termed national security interests or to ensure fair trial. The ruling also stated that the PTA also creates a vicious cycle of abuse that has been utilised at many times to the detriment of personal liberty by its draconian implementation. With that, the appeals court approved the bail application and set bail conditions as 100,000 rupees cash bail and 2 sureties of 500,000 rupees. Further, Hezbollah was also ordered to report to the DIG or SSP of the Puttalam district on the 2nd and 4th Sunday of every month. Further, the court also ordered Hezbollah to surrender his passport to the Puttalam High Court. With that, Hezbollah's legal team is set to file a bail application along with the appeals court ruling at the Puttalam High Court tomorrow and seek his release. Upon his pending release tomorrow, Hezbollah will finally be united with his family, including his infant daughter who was born while he was in detention. Meanwhile, the appeals court ruling was welcomed by the delegation of the European Union in Sri Lanka on social media today. The EU delegation also highlighted the importance of welcoming civil society engagement on PTA reforms and human rights issues, rather than meeting such moves with hostility.
Now then, former Human Rights Commissioner Ambika Satgunanathan has issued a response to the Foreign Ministry's response to her recent briefing to the European Parliament. In a statement, Satgunanathan accuses the Ministry of using misrepresentations and insinuations to silence critiques of government policies and actions. She also accused the government of trying to mislead the public and downplay them by labelling her statement as misleading.
Former Human Rights Commissioner Ambika Satgunanathan has issued a statement on the response to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to her statement to the European Parliament's Human Rights Subcommittee. Satgunanathan says that she was disappointed with the Ministry's response and says that it contains numerous misinterpretations and insinuations and appeared to be aimed at silencing critique of government policies and actions. She adds that with a number of urgent issues having been touched on in her briefing, she accused the government of trying to mislead the public and downplay them by labelling her statement as misleading. She also adds that it is disturbing that the government has taken umbrage at her appeal to the European Union to advocate with the government to fulfill its international human rights obligations using GSP Plus trade privileges as a conduit. Further, she pointed out that human rights obligations are obligations the government has a duty to fulfill as a member of the United Nations and signatory to several UN conventions. She also says that efforts to bring lasting peace to Sri Lanka are undermined by denials of the root causes of the armed conflict, such as discrimination, which instead the ministry's statement labels discussion of the issue as LTT propaganda. This, she says, is ominous given the decades-long strategy of weaponizing the Prevention of Terrorism Act against the Tamil people.
Ilangai Tamil Arasu Katchi parliamentarian Shanakyan Rasamanikam is calling for the resignation of Minister of Fisheries Douglas Devananda for what he termed inaction that has led to the deaths of 2 northern province fishermen. Rasamanikam says that the responsibility for the deaths lies with the minister due to his failure to address the growing issues of Indian encroachment into Sri Lankan waters.
Following the deaths of 2 Sri Lankan fishermen from the northern province last week, tensions have been high in the province among the fisher community. With no clue as to the cause of their deaths, local fishermen are pointing fingers at Indian bottom trawlers that have once again been seen in Sri Lankan waters. Last week, tempers flared during a meeting with Minister of Fisheries Douglas Devananda and fisher associations in the province, when they demanded more action to curb the entry of Indian boats. Speaking to AdaDerana English News today, Ilankai Tamil Arasu Katchi parliamentarian Shanakyan Rasamanikam repeated calls for Minister Devananda to resign his post if he is unable to assure the safety of local fishermen.
The loss have caused severe unrest amongst the community, and it's justified the unrest. The minister in charge, Honorable Douglas Devananda, should enact the law to stop the Indian bottom trawlers from coming into our seas. However, after the protest for about 2 weeks, the Navy was given strict instructions and no trawlers came to our shores. But in the last few weeks, we can see in 300 to 400 meters, we can see the Indian bottom trawlers coming very close to the northern shorelines. And the Navy has failed to stop these boats for vessels from coming. And the minister in charge has told the fishermen to get hold of the illegal trawlers and to hand them over to the Navy, which they did in the last week. But then thereafter, those fishermen were released. Now we have lost 2 lives, and the people suspect that this could be by an accident with the trawler, or this could be drowning that was caused after some confrontation, because the bodies were found only 5 days later. And the relevant minister in charge visited the protesters, and the protesters demanded that the minister gives in writing that he will take action, or he will instruct the Navy to enforce the law and to arrest any illegal trawlers that enter our shores. The only thing that the northern fishermen are demanding is that their livelihood not be snatched away from them because of the minister's inability. We have also in the past raised this matter with the Indian High Commission also. However, it's the minister in charge who needs to do the right thing. And today on the news, I saw that a representative of the Indian Tamil Nadu Chief Minister and Douglas Devananda have had a discussion regarding this matter, and we are still to understand what has transpired out of this. However, it's the ineffectiveness of Honorable Douglas Devananda that has caused the loss of these 2 lives. It is only fair that we demand that the Honorable Minister resigns immediately and hands over the portfolio to someone who is capable of looking after the interests of the Sri Lankan fishermen, especially the northern fishermen, whom in fact elected him to power. So this is not a protest, or this is not a fight, or this is not an issue against India or Tamil Nadu. Our protest is against fishermen who use legal bottom trawlers in our oceans.
Now, Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Pires, who is in India for a 2-day official visit, met with his Indian counterpart Dr. S. Jaishankar at the Ministry of External Affairs in Delhi today. The Foreign Minister arrived in New Delhi last evening upon the invitation of Indian External Affairs Minister. The 2 dignitaries held bilateral talks on a wide range of topics, with economic and investment initiatives, as well as enhancing Sri Lanka's energy security, high on the agenda. They had also discussed the need for expeditious bilateral mechanisms on Sri Lanka's fishermen issue. Professor Pires and Dr. Jaishankar had also recognized the importance of greater tourism for economic recovery, and also noted the importance of people-to-people linkages through greater connectivity. Foreign Minister Pires was joined by Sri Lanka's High Commissioner to India, Milinda Moragoda, and senior officials of the High Commission of Sri Lanka in Delhi and the Foreign Ministry. Now then, the Ceylon Fisheries Corporation has inked a deal with food delivery service Uber Eats to bring its fish and seafood products from its Seafish retail outlets right to your doorstep. With the service now available within the Colombo city, State Minister Kanchana Wijesekara says that he expects the service to expand to other cities along with the company's own expansion plans.
The Ceylon Fisheries Corporation has entered into a partnership with food delivery service Uber Eats to deliver fish and seafood within the Colombo city limits. State Minister of Ornamental Fish, Inland Fish and Prawn Farming Kanchana Wijesekara shared a post on social media today announcing the new agreement. With multiple outlets within the Colombo city, the new service is expected to provide a boost to sales for the Fisheries Ministry-run retail sales outlets. With multiple outlets within the Colombo city, the new service is expected to provide a boost to sales for the Fisheries Ministry-run retail sales outlets. Further, with the pricing policy of the Ceylon Fisheries Corporation designed to provide below market average prices to consumers, the new move is set to give consumers convenience and a bigger choice as well.
When the President gave us the task of transforming the Ceylon Fisheries Corporation, not just into a profit-making institution, but to be able to provide a service to the public throughout the country so that seafood will be available, quality seafood at an affordable price. So that has been our theme for the past 2 years. And Ceylon Fisheries Corporation, even though it has a long history, the last few years have been not good for the institution in terms of finances, in terms of administration. There have been lapses in the last few years, and we hope with the new transformations taking place, we've opened up quite a few outlets throughout the country in the last couple of years, and we wish to not just to cater to urban cities, but go into rural areas where there is a need for protein requirements in the public. And one of the main things about seafood in Sri Lanka is that even the health authorities would agree with me, 60% of the protein requirement is from seafood in Sri Lanka. One of the main things that we have been focusing in at CFC is quality and affordability. And I hope the staff here, the stakeholders, everyone will work towards that goal in achieving the standards that we have set out.
We'll see you shortly. Bear with us.
Big 3.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, the Government Medical Officers Forum today called on the government to consider privatising government services, particularly the health sector. Chairman of the forum, Dr. Rukshan Bellana, made these remarks in light of the island-wide strike launched by 18 health trade unions, saying that the health services, if privatised, would produce better results than in its current state.
18 health trade unions launched an island-wide strike today as some of the demands had not been delivered upon. The unions say that the strike that was launched from 7 a.m. today will remain in effect until the government provides the solutions they need. Some of the demands made by the unions are for the health sector to be declared as a closed service, an increase of their special duty allowance to 10,000 rupees, and the establishment of a health administration service representing all health professionals. However, the only hospitals that didn't join in the strike were cancer, maternity and pediatric hospitals, hospitals treating kidney diseases and the Central Blood Bank. The union stated that the strike will not also extend to emergency and life-saving services as well. However, President of the Public Services United Nurses Union, Venerable Murathettuwe Anandathera, announced yesterday that the union will not take part in the strike launched today. This is, he said, due to the fact that 4 out of the 7 demands that had been made by the unions had received a response. However, Venerable Anandathera says that some of the other unions involved in the strike are exerting pressure on the members of its union to strike. The chairman urged its members to have faith in the government as their demands will be met by the president. He said that the solutions are being delayed due to certain unexpected issues. Meanwhile, citing the strike, the Government Medical Officers Forum said today that it is the right time for the government to privatize government services.
දැන් හරි කාලේ මේ රාජ්‍ය සේවය පුද්ගලීකරණයට යන්න වාර්තා තියෙනවා. සමහර රසායනාගාර පරීක්ෂණ පිටස්තර පෞද්ගලික රෝහලකට ගෙනියලා කරන එක ලාභදායි මේ ආණ්ඩුවේ ස්පිතාල තුල කරනවට වඩා. කොස්ට් ස්ටඩීස් වලින් පැහැදිලිව තියෙනවා මේක පුද්ගලික අංශයට මේ අංශ බාර දී යුතුයි කියලා. මේකේ තනිකර පීඩාවට පත් කරන්නේ බදු ගෙවන ජනතාව. මේ රෝහල් වල සේවය පුද්ගලික අංශයට බාර දුන්නොත් මීට වඩා මානුෂික මුහුණුවරයකින් මීට වඩා සාර්ථකත්වයකින් සෞඛ්‍ය සේවය කරගෙන යන්න පුළුවන් කියන අවස්ථාව අපිට උදා කරගන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි.
Deputy Director General of Education and Research at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hemantha Herat, says that the gazette that will bar unvaccinated people from public places is a measure taken to protect both the vaccinated and unvaccinated. He says that the objective of the move is to prevent the unvaccinated from infecting the vaccinated.
The daily COVID-19 cases reported in the island have stood above the 1,000 mark for 10 consecutive days. Yesterday, the number of cases reported was 1,331. While the number reported today is slightly reduced to 1,298. As the spread of Omicron in the country is still on the rise, what the health authorities are urging the public to do is to contribute in preventing the spread by adhering to the recommended safety protocols and get vaccinated as soon as possible. Accordingly, by last evening, 5,778,838 persons have obtained the booster dose so far. However, looking at these numbers, it seems that the public seem to be showing some reluctance in obtaining the booster, possibly due to misinformation circling in social media. However, from the 30th of April, the situation will have to be different. As per the new gazette issued by the Minister of Health, Keheliya Ramukwelda, anyone who hasn't completed their required dose of vaccination will be barred from entering public places from the end of April. According to the definition provided by the Director General of Health Services, Dr. Asala Gunawardana, fully vaccinated people over the age of 20 would be those who have obtained the two-dose regime as well as the booster dose. For children between 16 and 19 years, having taken the two-dose regime would render them fully vaccinated, while a single shot would be sufficient for children between 12 to 15 years. With that being the case, getting yourself fully immunized before the 30th of April is important if access to public places is required. Speaking further with regard to the Gazette notification by the Health Minister, the Ministry of Health's Deputy Director General of Education and Research, Dr. Hemantha Herat, referred to this measure as a move to protect both vaccinated and unvaccinated.
Vaccinated person possess a certain level of immunity against the infection, and therefore the likelihood of getting into complications or dying from infection is relatively low for the immunized or vaccinated person. In relation to that, unvaccinated person is more likely to get complications or risk of dying is relatively high compared to the fully vaccinated person. And also because of the high immunity, the vaccinated person's likelihood of spreading the virus is relatively low, and unvaccinated persons, since his immunity is relatively low, the likelihood of spreading the virus into the environment is relatively high. And as a result, we need to protect both vaccinated and unvaccinated persons. To protect the unvaccinated persons, we need to discourage them going into the public places unless it is essential. So therefore, this type of legal measures may help to protect the unvaccinated person.
Welcome back to First at 9. Now taking a look at the Colombo Bourse, the all-share price index lost 130.91 points to end at 12,631.69, while the S&P SL 20 index of more liquid stocks ended at 4,280.86 after dropping 52.90 points. Market turnover was 6 billion rupees for the day. Now with that, here's Dimantha Matthew with a brief report on today's market performance, followed by a currency update.
Today we saw a bit of a decline in trend in the market as the downtrend or the negativity in the market seems to be continuing throughout. So today we are seeing a 131 point decline in the market, where the overall share price index was around 12,631 points at close. So selling pressure is continuously increasing, and this overall pressure is led by the transportation sector, which has been continuing its declining trend over the last 2 weeks. In addition to that, we are seeing the capital goods sector is also following similar suit and declining on a gradual pace. However, if you take the turnover levels, even the turnover levels also sort of declining compared to the previous few days, but overall market activity is continuing to remain high at over 59,000 transactions during the day.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.